Get 7% off your first year with DistroKid using the link in the description. I spoke to a number of you over the past couple weeks about your struggles in the studio and your goals for production. In this video, I'll share some perspectives after conducting those interviews for YouTube and behind the scenes with my most engaged viewers. Plus, a bonus segment about the secret to recording and mixing if you watch until the end. First, thank you to everyone who participated in these interviews, to you the viewer for watching, and to my subscribers who helped open these doors. Thank you so much for your continued support. I have so much more in store for you. If you like what we're doing, subscribe now and help amplify the message. And a big thanks to DistroKid, the sponsor of this series. Travel is expensive and they were a huge help to make this series possible. If you're thinking, what is DistroKid?
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 DistroKid? DistroKid.
DistroKid is a digital music distribution service that musicians use to put your music into online stores and streaming services. They send your music to over 150 platforms so that you don't need to apply to each one. It's simple, it's easy, and done for you. DistroKid collects streaming royalties for you without ever taking a cut, and they also collect and display analytics for your listener data, very helpful for planning targeted ads or even live shows once the world clears up. It's easy to get started. Simply upload your music to DistroKid. You can add your artwork, lyrics, and songwriter credits, set a release date, and they do the rest. They have a ton of marketing tools to promote your launch, like promo cards or mini videos to display your album art with some extra pizzazz. You can get started today with 7% off your first year with DistroKid using the link in the description. Okay, so let's talk about Dave Thomas, specifically his mixing and tracking rooms. Dave's room is humble with some homemade acoustic treatment that's good enough for rock royalty Paul Rogers. Here's a guy who has it all, and he's still making his own panels and diffusers. In another episode, I'll show you how he builds his bass traps. So Dave using a laptop with a huge console beneath. It's a pretty strong statement when he's using that console as a desk for his laptop. I mean, he gets his great sound on the way in because he works with amazing musicians and he captures their playing with fantastic microphones that he custom built. Microphones that are advanced replicas on the ones that he used during his days of owning a studio. The price of those original mics has gone way up, and in some cases the quality didn't exactly follow. So if you want to learn more about Dave and advanced audio, I'll put a link in the description where you can check them out. Dave's use is also very utilitarian. He wants it to sound great, but he wants to feel great doing it. It's all about the workflow. And as Dave pointed out, one of the downsides to using a laptop is mousing around. There's nothing like having a bunch of buttons to touch and knobs to twist to give your workflow some variety. And there was no shortage of buttons and knobs on the Helios console in the Rolling Stones mobile studio. As Jason mentioned, it's really easy to gush and fetishize over this era of music because there's no strings attached to these productions. The Helios board is a great piece of technology that amplifies great art. The Rolling Stones mobile truck chased the greatest artists of its day around Europe, capturing their music in the highest fidelity possible. Now it's become a mecca for artists who want that authentic classic rock sound, but make no mistake, the true magic is still found in the great performance. Jason will speak more on that later in this video. Paul Johnston at Grant McEwen mentioned the experience of working on a large console. He feels that it benefits students to learn with a hybrid workflow, recording with an analog console into a computer with Pro Tools. It gives the students the opportunity to get hands-on with a sound before it's recorded into a computer. This is the focus of his Intro to Recording class, with ideas inspired by the McGill program and recording live off the floor. In later courses, students learn the possibilities of post-production. So the large console experience, is it necessary? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Did you learn recording on a console? Do you still use one? And do you think that those who aren't are missing out? Share your story down below. Paul also mentioned that what big studios offer is not what your average recording application needs. Commercial studios offer very specialized tools in a controlled environment supervised by trained experts. They offer a wide selection of gear, quality rooms for recording and listening, and knowledgeable staff able to accommodate any sound that you desire. And while that may sound ideal, the environment is very different from a personal studio. You're only renting the space, so you're always on the clock and you're there to get shit done. A home studio is great for a lot of things, especially composition and production in a DAW. You can build an arrangement and experiment to record your ideas so that you know exactly what you're going to play on the big day. But I'd love to know how you would spend a day in one of these studios. Maybe you'd use your time to track drums for a handful of songs and really make use of the room and record all of the other instruments on your own time. During my time as a recording intern, that's what we saw a lot of, bands starting with drums to a click or backing track. And while the studios did have some great techniques for recording bass, keyboards, and guitars, what really brings in the clients is the big room for recording drums and the selection of vintage microphones for recording vocals. Vocals are especially important, and coaching is a great way to get the best performance from a singer. But do you need all these things to make a great recording? If you have them, that's fine. If you can afford them, that's great. But do you need to drag a console into your house to be a great recording engineer? Everyone we interviewed has a console, but both Dave and Arnell have been more in the box recently. Both can be done, as Paul says it's in the hands of the user. So what are your thoughts? Are consoles necessary? Is the experience of working on one worth it? And what benefits does console workflow have in the box? As Paul so elegantly put it, limits create magic. And I thought that this was one of Arnell's best points as well. When you have very little to work with, mix up those few variables as much as you can. We learn by deciding we don't like what we're doing and then finding a better way to achieve that goal. Constraints are good because they trigger ingenuity. So put your best gear in weird places or put junky gear in the spotlight. Something new and special might just happen. You may also be thinking that everything that you're making right now sucks, and that's okay. Arnell reminds us that artists of all levels experience imposter syndrome.
If people at that level doubt themselves, and I at my level doubt myself, there's a lot more in common than we think.
Especially if you're a self-starter who's getting your toes wet in a variety of new roles, the Dunning-Kruger effect is gonna slap you across the face so often that you might forget what you're actually good at, and that's normal. As your journey continues, you'll need to learn additional skills and use them in new and interesting ways to find and develop your niche.
We're here to mentor them and to help them and to teach them certain skills that will help them, but a skill on its own won't really help you. Like, there's multiple skills that have to overlap. The biggest skill in the music industry is to be able to stay employed.
It's not long before you realize that what got you here won't get you there. I reached out to a few of my longtime viewers and asked them for their thoughts on these interview questions, and what really stood out to me was the emphasis on collaboration. John's advice to producers making music alone is to try and find other people to work with, whether they're musicians or engineers. Trying to do everything alone can be really overwhelming and really slows down your process. You'll also find different perspectives that will help you to create better ideas and better music. I asked him if he thought music was a team sport and can you solo the entire process? John believes that music creation is very much a team process. Every part of the process benefits from a different and specific mindset, a different set of tools, and a different point of view. It can really help to have someone else make the idea real. Robbie from the Can't Afford to Record channel had a different approach. He feels that you should try and solo every part of the process so that you can find your strengths and learn how you can contribute and communicate with a team. Humans aren't islands. We're social creatures. On that note, if you're still watching this video, tell me what you want to see next. Who'd you like to hear from and what you're struggling with at this stage in your journey? And as promised, at the end of each of our interviews, we ask the guests to tell us the secret to what they do best. So here it is. Thank you for watching.
So now that we've reached the end of the interview and nobody's watching anymore, can you tell us what's the secret to recording?
Well, it's just to have great players, you know, like to have great performance, or to try to get a performance out of somebody that, you know, that's there. Then you don't have to do anything. Like I was just working with Paul Rogers. I mean, he's like rock royalty, but he came over to do a vocal for a Stand By Me, the Benny King song. So he was asked to sing a verse and a chorus. He runs through a little bit. We got a level. And then I look out at him, and then 1 minute he's 3 feet back off the mic, and the next minute he's right up to it, and he's everywhere in between. When you listen back, there's nothing you have to do. He's, over his 50 years of singing experience, has learned how to work a mic. That's the secret, is to. Now, how do you get young people to, you know, get to that level? See, that's the job of the universities and training people and letting them, you know, work with people like that.
Part of my daily routine is to work on Bach. Like 4-part chorales, sing one part, play the other 3, go through them. And if I do that for half an hour a day, When I get to mixing, I hear the music like it kind of animates in a different way, and you don't have to turn things up as loud to hear them. Like, I really do find that the independence and the ability to hear counterpoint super well, hear harmony super well, it definitely influences my mixing, and I find my mixes are better. I can hear stuff better, and it just helps my playing, my mixing, and it helps everything.
This technology was technology that was already great, that captured greatness. It didn't enhance it. Like, it did, but it wasn't like auto-tune.
Yeah,
So much of digital recording technology is about manipulating performance after the fact. And anyone that's gotten better at production realizes that it's so much easier to change a sound or a performance as it's going down or before it's going down than after. And I feel like that's what's being really lost from today's day and age, is we have Pro Tools and Auto-Tune and we can put everything on the grid, but it falls a little bit flat. Whereas these records, like, you listen to Led Zeppelin, there's mistakes on them, but they kind of don't matter because of all of the other things that are going on. There is an interaction between the band members that happens because of the way they recorded, where they recorded live and all of this stuff. And so this technology was about capturing the magic that was already happening in these castles and mansions or whatever. That's what was happening. And so I just hope that in the future of recording technology and production is we shift back to that, putting the onus on the artist to practice more, to be better at their instruments, to collaborate, create, because so much of that is done after the fact now, and it's not as effective as doing it before. That's what I always kind of talk about when I'm talking about this truck, is like, you have this kind of perfect blank palette that no matter what you do, it'll be captured in greatness. Now the onus is on you to be great.
The valuable thing that you can do at home, even with any gear you have, even if all you have is a guitar amp and your guitar, is find out what your sound is and just practice it, like over and over and over again. Maybe your thing is like, you're really good at listening to music and picking out little details when you're listening to other bands, if you're an engineer. Or maybe your strength is melodyning vocals, or maybe you're really good at programming MIDI drums. If that's what your thing is, there's room in the industry for people in any niche. Especially if you say, hey, I'm the guy that knows how to do MIDI metal drums. Because I'm not that guy. And if somebody comes in and they need that, I'm not going to be able to give it to them. But if I know somebody who does it, I'll be like, that's the guy you got to talk to. She's really great at tracking vocals. You should go talk to her. This is like her element. So I would say, yeah, that's the biggest thing, is find out what you're good at and just something that you enjoy doing and do it more. Don't try and be something that you aren't.